Hello, welcome to this new video. So what we're going to do now is we have modified the last project a little bit and we're going to add more buttons. We're going to handle actions and using events for all those buttons, and we are going to create an event manager based on a Singleton pattern. For handling several buttons, what we're going to do, we're going to pass in some parameters. So that's probably the first question came up after the last video. It was about passing in parameters using Unity events. Okay, as you can see, I have modified the project a little bit. I've created two groups, one for having the buttons and one for having panels. This is actually a panel and this is also a panel. The panels I have for panels, I got them with different colors, as you can see here, as I activate them, just to see the difference when I transit from one to another. And here's our old custom button that we had before. It's the same one. I just added an outline here, and I set it up the defect distance from x3 and y minus 3. That's going to show me what button is actually selected. So let's open our test button script that we had. This is what we had last time. So what we're going to do now, the first thing we're going to do is, as you can see here, custom button, sorry, here, not test button. These are our events. So if we go to our events, then we see that then this, and when you add the listener, you passing a Unity action, you cannot actually have any parameter passed in. So the first thing we're going to do, we're going to create a script that is going to be called custom Unity event. What's going to happen in this script? This script, I won't need this, so I have to add a using clause here, Unity engine dot events. And I also need to add a Unity engine that event systems. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to make this class inherit from Unity event. So I'm going to inherit from Unity event. And I'm going to pass in some types here. So as you can see, there are 4 overloads. I can pass in up to 4 types, type as parameters. So what I'm going to do, the first type is just going to be a game object. And the second one is going to be a class that I'm going to define right here, just for convenience. Custom class, custom event Args. That's what I'm going to call it. And this class, what it's going to have is several constructors. So for example, this would be an empty constructor first, but then the second one is not going to be an empty constructor, but it's going to have a parameter. In this case, let's say for example, pointer event data. So I have it here. So just I could actually add more constructors here, overload this constructor more times, and that would allow me to include whatever I have in the second parameter. Okay, so this is what we have now in our custom Unity event class. So what we're going to do now, we're going to go to the custom button class, and we're going to see that this event here, instead of being a Unity event, is going to be a custom Unity event. Okay, so all these ones are going to be custom Unity events. And as you can see now, this events invokes are complaining, obviously, because they are now expecting parameters, because they are custom Unity events, not just events. So the first parameter, we're just going to pass in game object, and the second one, we're going to do a new custom event args. But as you can see, I have 2 overloads here. These are the ones I have created in the custom Unity events and custom event args class. So in this case, we're just going to pass in the same event data that comes here, the pointer event data. So it's just going to go in there. All right, so as you can see, this now works. So we're going to do the same thing with the other ones. And let's see if my copy paste works. All right, so my custom button class now has new events that take in parameters. Good. Okay, as you can see now, I have some errors here. Of course, if I go to my test button script, I'll see that I have some errors. It's because now my event handler has to have parameters according to the new definition for my events. So I'm going to generate the new methods for this. Gonna let the IntelliSense do the work. So where I had on pointer down before, I'm just gonna copy paste this here. And then the next one is on pointer up. So it's going to go here. Then on pointer exit. Well, I guess we're just going to copy this for now because you will see that I'm going to modify this further. So I need to do on pointer enter and on pointer click. So on pointer enter is here, and on pointer click is here. So okay, I don't need to do anything else, so I'm going to erase all that. I'm also going to erase the update because I'm not using it. And actually what I'm gonna do to make it even more confusing, I'm gonna change probably this name, because then I might be adding more things, and probably test pattern is not a good name for it. So I'm just going to call it test script 1. But as you can see, this creates some problems because this has to be called the same way, otherwise you'll get errors. So if I go to my canvas now, okay, so now the script is updated, so it's not complaining. Sometimes you have to remove the script and add it again when you change the name, so be careful with that. So probably they have updated some stuff on the Unity engine that allows us to do that now. So what I have to do now is have to create my event manager, because it's obviously I don't want to handle the events on this script because I'm going to have many buttons. So, and I want to pass in parameters, so probably I want to have one single event manager for the scene. Now it comes to the thing and the question of either having a static class or having a singleton class. From my experience, I prefer to have a singleton class because a static class, of course, is going to exist through the whole application, and the singleton can be destroyed, and you will find later that that is convenient. So I'm gonna search Google for singleton, Unity singleton pattern. So I go to this wiki. So I am taking my code from here. I did modify it a little bit. So I'm just gonna create a class here that's called singleton, and it's right here. So I'm going to copy paste it from the one I already have defined, which is pretty much the one that you found on the wiki. It's just a little bit different. So this, okay, it's missing this part. What I added was actually this little enumeration here. And this is of course not inheriting from it's actually, I have to pass in a parameter. This is kind of the syntax that has to go here, where T inherits from mono behavior. Okay, that's good now. So now it's working. So I added here a static variable of type enumeration. Why? Because if you look at this pattern here, what they do is they make the object, with this you make the objects persistent. That means that if you close a scene and you open another one, load a different scene, this object is gonna persist through the scenes. And there are cases where you want that. For example, if you had a game manager, if you have a game manager, then you want this object to be persistent. But if you're, for example, in my case, talking about events in a particular scene, I don't want it to be persistent. So that's why I added this here, so I can make it persistent or non-persistent. So this script that I took from here is modified a little bit in that sense. So now that I have this singleton created here, so I'm going to now create my other script, which is my event manager. That of course is going to be inheriting from that singleton. So event manager, so the syntax that has to go here is inherits from singleton, and it's gonna have a type of event manager. Okay, so I don't need any of this. So this is going to be now my event manager. And what I'm going to have here is a constructor that is going to be public event manager. And in this case, I want my event manager to be not persistent. So in my singleton, I have this variable here, right? So this variable, I'm going to make it singleton type non-persistent. The way this works is that it's going to, the singleton pattern, the way that works is going to look for the singleton, and if it doesn't find any, it's going to create one, and it's going to do a log here, so it impedes all the other threads by trying to create another one, so it always keeps one. So if we see this and we run it now, let's see if we don't get another error, because there are things that are not completed, but I just want to see if this automatically creates the event manager object. So in this case, it did not create the event manager object, because we're not actually calling anything from the event manager. That's how it works. So the moment that you require something from the event manager is when it gets created. So if we look a little bit at this singleton pattern, this is how it works. I can explain this in more detail in a different video if somebody wants more detail, but I don't want to spend too much time explaining this, because then the video is going to become too long. So, but basically I have a static reference here, right? So what I'm going to do in my event manager, I'm just going to create a dummy function that I'm just going to call public void beacon or something, whatever. And I'm just going to output something on the console. I'm just going to say hello world. So hello world from event manager. So, and of course I need to call this function. So what I'm going to go to my test script, and I'm just going to go event manager. That's what the reference is for. You will see here event, the static reference, I mean, instance, and then I can access that beacon method, and I call it from here. So now if you see, if I play now, the event manager is going to appear here. Beautiful. So now it gets created, and I stop the scene, it gets destroyed. As you can see, it's just a regular object. So the modification that I did to the original code for my singleton for my event manager is that I created something here in the constructor so that I can set up an enumeration type. So in this case, it was set to non-persistent. But look what happens if I set it to now persistent and I run this. It runs the don't destroy all load. So that means that if I load a different scene, this object is going to get transferred to that scene. So it's not going to be destroyed when the scene gets unloaded. So you got that option. That's why I created this here. So in this case, I'm going to make it non-persistent because that's how I would like my event manager to be. If I am talking about my game manager, for example, that I want to be persistent because there are some settings that I probably want to carry through different scenes. But that's totally up to you. So you have the option there. Okay, so now I have my event manager. So what I have to do now is do some stuff in my event manager. First of all, I need my Unity events here. By the way, I think I'll do another video using native C# events, which are faster actually than Unity event, but this is like an easier way to do it for people that are not familiarized with very much with events yet. But I will probably do that later. So this is going to be now a custom. Oh, actually, I had it here, right? Or no, on my custom button class. So all this is going to get transferred now to my event manager because this is where the events are going to get triggered. So remember, as I explained before, we have to do something in the wake, which is what we were doing here. So that's gonna go here now. So I don't need this anymore. Oh, what did I erase? Okay, yeah, that's just that. So all right, so those are my events now. So what's the problem now? Here I'm trying to add listeners to those events, but I got an error because it doesn't exist. But it's just because these things are located somewhere else now. They are in my event manager. So event manager dot instance all right, good. So this is what I need to do now here. It's not going to be test button anymore. It's going to be in my event manager. This is where the events I am subscribing to are located now. All right. Okay, so I also have some errors here. Does not exist in the current context. Yeah, is because obviously the same thing. This is located now in my event manager class instance. So I just have to update the location for it to work. Perfect. So same thing here, copy paste. Oh, sorry. Screwing up the whole thing here. Okay, so this has to go just right at the beginning because then I need to identify the events. Okay. All right, so I believe now I have no errors. Yes, I have no errors. What I have left to do here is just I'm going to duplicate these buttons because I want to have 4 buttons that actually, if you see already where I'm going, I want to activate each panel when I hover each button. That's kind of my goal with this application. Okay, so I have all my buttons here now. The test script is going to change a lot now. So I actually want to have here, I don't care about this button anymore. So this is not happening anymore. So I'm actually gonna call this one now temp color for more convenience. I'm just going to erase this here, and the hover color, if you're familiar with RGB, you're probably going to understand what I'm doing here, otherwise it's not important. This is going to give you some sort of light blue or something like that, if I'm not mistaken. I created also here a custom buttons array, because I want to have an array of the buttons, but I also would like to have an array of the panels. But there's no such a thing as a panel class. That is very simple. We're just going to create another script that is going to be called panel, and we're going to make it inherit from selectable. It's probably gonna ask me to do a using clause. Yeah, Unity.UI. So this is just a dummy script that I'm going to add to each one of the panels. You will wonder why I'm doing this. Is just because I want to be able to have an array of panels. Of course, if you want to treat this as game objects, it's up to you, but then you have to have an array of game objects, and then how do you identify inside the canvas? How do you reference these 4 panels? You have to manually be dragging and dropping, right? Why, if you then you want to add another panel, then you have to again include it in your array. So I like to do things in the code behind, but it's up to you. You could do it manually. There's no need to have this panel class. I just do it for convenience. Okay, so I'm gonna go to my test script, and now I'm going to have a array of buttons, and also I'm going to have an array of panels, and these are going to be called panels. So what I'm going to do now after this, what I'm going to do is just my array of buttons is going to be filled with the get components in children, get components in children, and they're going to be of the type custom button, right? So that's going to fill my array, and I'm going to do the same thing with the panels, right? Get component in children. Oh, I'm just going to copy paste this one. I think it'll be better. And I'm just going to get the panels. So that is going to populate my arrays. I can actually test this now. In order to test it, I need to do serialize field here, so I can actually see them on the inspector. I can also make them public to see on the inspector. And if I look here now, on the canvas, yeah, I have my 4 buttons and I have my panels here. Good. So I have all the references. And see, if you want to group things like this, it's very convenient to create those classes and script with a class that you can easily have access to those objects, and you make it dynamic, so you can grow as much as you want, and then it doesn't have to change in terms of doing anything on the inspector. Okay, so one thing I have to do is just I have to move these buttons a little bit because they're all overlapping. So I'm probably gonna do a little bit more. 100? That's too much probably. 80 I think is fine. 120. And this one is gonna be 160. And of course I have to change this name. This is button 2. This is button 3. And this is button button 4. Okay, so that's looking better now. And on my test script, what I'll do here in the start, I'm gonna do a for each. For each custom button item in my array buttons, what I'll do is just I'm gonna disable them, disable the outline. So I'm gonna do item that get component in children outline and I'm just gonna go enabled equals false. Okay. And also I have to or if I have any panels, well, I'll just do it. I'm going to assume that I have at least one panel, but of course you might want to do the check if your panel's at length is greater than 0. So for each panel item in panels, I'm just going to disable them. Item that schema object that set active equals, set active false. So right now, no outline is going to be selected, no panel is going to be active if I run this. Yeah, nothing is active, right? So what I want to do is to have at least one active panel, and my now my active panel, you may see that I'm kind of repeating things here, but it's just I don't know, that's the way I did it. It might look a little confusing. So the active panel is gonna be on enabled, so the click button is going to be I'm going to I want to enable the outline on the first button, right, or on the click button. So get component in children outline enabled equals true. So now if I do this, I'm going to have the first panel activated and the first outline on the first button enabled. See? All right, good. Okay, so one thing I haven't done is desubscribing from these events. I'm going to do this on disable. I have to pointer click, remove all listeners. So I need to do that for all the events. Sometimes it recommends to do this here. Most times you can also do on destroy, with this unsubscribe from the events. It all depends on what you're doing. For example, if you are enabling and disabling a panel, the moment that you disable the panel, you make it set active that false, then this is going to be called. So probably you don't want to desubscribe to that event and on disable, and you want to do it on destroy. So it all depends on what you're doing. So just be careful with that. For now, I'm just going to do this, and it's probably going to give me an error when I stop the game, because the singleton at that time it might be destroyed, so it's not gonna find this. But anyways, that's important to desubscribe always. And now what we're gonna do, we're gonna start doing stuff here. So for the on pointer down, I should probably do the on pointer enter first. Okay, so let's say this event now is when the fun part comes. Let's say this event get called, so a pointer as enter a button. So the first thing I need to do is grab a reference to that button. So I'm just going to call this one found button, and I'm gonna make it this probably should be called different than Arg2 button. I'm just going to call it button object just to make it more understandable. So this button object that I'm passing here is a game object, so I have to do the get component in children, custom button. So now I got my reference to my button, and then in this found button, what I want to do is that image.color, make it my hover color, and then here I'm gonna do something weird, but it could be done different, more efficiently. Okay, so the thing is, at this point, this button that got clicked or whatever happened with it came through this event. So I don't actually know at this point what a index is in the array of buttons that I defined. Probably what would have been a better thing to do is just in the custom button have an index here, and then when I do the for loop here, but it will have to be instead of a for each of a for loop, so I can grab the index and put it into the button right away, so I can grab it easily from here. So at this point, I'm not gonna do that because I'm gonna change too much. I'm just gonna call this found index, and what I'm gonna do is something kind of weird here. I'm just gonna go to the array, so, and I'm gonna say find index of this button, right? Find the index of button object. Sorry, no, it's not like that. You have to provide the array, so find the index in buttons, and then the conditions. So I'm gonna use a Lambda operator here if you're not familiar with it. So find a button X such as that X equals the one that I am providing here. So that should give me the index of the button in the array. So what I have to do now, if panels, sorry, no, not panels, if active panel equals the panel corresponding to the same index, that's why I need the found index here. So if this is the condition, sorry, not panel, panels, that's my array. Okay, so if this is the condition, so I'm hovering that button that has the same index of the panel, but if the panel is already active, I don't want to do anything, right? So I actually have to check if that panel is not the active panel. So that's why I add this negation here. So if this is the case, then I'm gonna do something. So the active panel is gonna be deactivated, right? So then the active panel is gonna be the actual new panel that got that it corresponds to this index, that game object, because the active panel is an object. So, and then the active panel, set active, the new active panel now gets activated. So same thing is gonna happen on the onPointer exit, something very similar. So I'm gonna copy paste. Where's my onPointer exit here? It's just a little different. Oh, okay, this is not called the same, so I'm gonna change this name. So in this case I'm exiting. So what I'm gonna do is that I'm not gonna check any condition. I'm just gonna say that the active panel gets deactivated, and the active panel is actually the click panel. So what I want to do with the UI is that if I click on a button, that selects a panel, and then if I hover a different button button will show temporarily another panel, but then if I exit, it will go back to the one that was clicked. That's the way I want to do it, but of course you can do it differently, right? It doesn't have to be that way. So then I go back to the, I assign this to the click panel, and it sets active true. So all I have to do now is just handle the click. So where's the click here? Okay, so again we are going to copy paste this here. So what's going to happen when there's a button click? Same thing, button object here. Same thing. In this case, I'm not checking the active panel. I'm checking the click panel, which is the one that it goes back to when I exit the temporary panel, if I want to call it some way. So if the click panel in this case is not equal, so is the negation of that condition, right? If it's not equal to that one, then I'm gonna do something. So I'm probably gonna erase all this because it's different now. So the click panel is gonna be equal to panels found index. So it's gonna be the new panel now, that game object. So since I click now, the click panel is going to be that one, and my click button is going to be deactivated, right? So my click button get component in children outline. It's not going to be deactivated. It's just that I'm going to deactivate the outline because now it's going to be a different button. So the outline is going to be deactivated. Oh, IntelliSense is playing with me, so it's equal to false. So then the click button is now going to be my buttons found index, the new button that I clicked. And last thing is the clicked button get component in children outline. Now is the new outline, right? Has to be enabled. Okay, I think this is it. Let's go test it. Oh, so something on pointer exit is not working. Okay, so I actually have some copy paste problems. Let's see here. On pointer enter, I want it to be the hover color, and on pointer click, I actually don't want to change the color. And on pointer exit, I also had hover color, so I want it to be my temp color, the color that originally had the button had, right? And I'm just gonna grab it from here just for the sake of making it simple. Buttons with lowercase. All right, so that image, that color, of course. Okay, so I got the color now. Let's check my events. Where are my event manager? Let's see. Sorry, not my event, my overloads here. Oh, yeah, I'm calling the wrong event here, so I got a mess here. On pointer enter. So okay, on pointer enter, on pointer exit, on pointer down, on pointer up. on point to click. Okay, I think finally should work now. Let's see. Yes. See, when I hover a button, it activates the other panel. That's what I wanted to do, kind of something dynamic. But then if I click, for example, I click on my button, click, it outlines that one as clicked. And if I hover on the other ones, it will show temporarily the panel, but if I exit, it will go back to the one that it was selected. That's why I keep the click panel and the click button, right? So it keeps the outline there. Perfect. So finally, everything works. We're getting an error here when we stop the app, and it's here. So that means that we're trying to unsubscribe from something that doesn't exist anymore. So most likely because when I stop the app, the event manager gets destroyed. So there's a couple of options there that I can do, but I won't explain anything further because it's gonna make this video too long. Probably what I'm gonna add when I commit this to the repository, I'm just gonna add like a coroutine so it doesn't get destroyed right away when it stops the app or something like that. So this has time to unsubscribe. Of course, you could also do that, but I believe that's not a good idea because you always have to unsubscribe from your events. See, you don't have the error anymore, but of course you want to be unsubscribing. So I'm going to commit this to the repository. What I'm doing now with the repository, here's my repository, view on GitHub. What I'm doing is that I am creating tags. So see, I have one release here, that's the video one. So I'm gonna create another one for this one, so you can download the repository for each video, so you can follow along. Okay, so well, thank you so much, and that's it for this video. If you like it, give it a like. It would be nice if you subscribe because that will help me, and see you in the next video.